What's up, guys? This is Mateo's 2020 Politics here, and today we're going to be discussing the 70% wealth tax. Now, of course, the 70% wealth tax is a policy proposed by Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and the goal of it is basically to tax the top 1% richest Americans by 70%. Now, many people think this is some type of, this is victimizing rich people. It really isn't. So we have Jeff Bezos, his total net worth is $110 billion. $110 billion. Nobody should be that rich. Now, this man has $110 billion at the expense of 50% of Americans making $30,000 or less every year, 78% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, and 31% of Americans who have little to no money saved for retirement. Now, you can see there's clearly some divide here. We have Jeff Bezos, who has over $100 billion. Last time I checked, the richest person on Earth was not him, it was actually Bill Gates, and his net worth was $60 billion. So now the new guy is almost twice that much. So, and then at the same time, you have people who could barely even live in their homes. They're making $30,000 or less every year. That's half of the country. You have also almost 80% of Americans living paycheck to paycheck. They're just countless of examples, although these are bigger ones, of this huge divide of how the middle class is just disappearing. It's going to be greatly diminished. There's a huge divide between the richest people and everybody else. Now, we should stop acting like a 70% wealth tax is victimizing billionaires. And look, let's just get real. If you are a billionaire and you are taxed at 70%, you're still going to be mega rich. Even if you're not a billionaire anymore, you're still going to be a millionaire. Now, mind you, $1 million, simply going into a calculator and typing in a million, you might get lost or make a mistake because there's so many zeros. There's so many digits. That just represents how much money they have. It's so much you get lost in it. Now, these billionaires have more money than they need. You never see them going broke. They have so much to lose. All of this while millions of Americans are constantly struggling to keep their house because they are barely able to pay their rent. They can barely keep their houses. They're barely on their feet. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands of Americans, including veterans, who are living on the streets. Not even a home. When we have tens of millions of Americans who are struggling to be on their feet and struggling to pay their rent. Sometimes they might have to skip rent for a whole month because they can't pay for it. That is not justice. That's a huge divide between the rich and the poor. Even people like Mark Zuckerberg and Warren Buffett, who are in the top 10 richest people on Earth, the top 10 richest Americans, are in agreement with this plan, the 70% wealth tax. So, the people who just say that the billionaires are being victimized here, it's just wrong. Because I find it so interesting how it's ridiculous how you're going to say, oh, that person who just wasn't able to pay his rent for 3 months straight and got locked out of their apartment, or oh, that person living on the street, yeah, they're not victims. You know who the victims are? The billionaires. The millionaires. Either one. That makes no sense. You're going to say that the billionaires are going to be the victims from this, but that millions of people who are living on the streets, or rather hundreds of thousands of people who are living on the streets, are not victims? Please explain that logic. It doesn't make any sense. And it's interesting because if there's a higher tax rate implemented to poor people, nobody's going to talk about it. But then when it's implemented into the rich population, oh, it's so bad, it's a scandal, and billionaires are going to get killed off. What? These people, once again, have more money than they even need. They could have a disaster. Their company could crash. They could not do well. They could their career could be over and they still could be on their feet. While with American people, they don't have to lose their job in order to go bankrupt or live on the street. Because they're already on the fringe of living on the street. They can't pay for their rent. Now, this isn't all of Americans, but it sure is a large amount of them. Again, 50% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, or rather, sorry, I messed up the statistic. And this actually looks better for me. 78, not 50, 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. 50% of Americans make $30,000 or less every year. 31% of Americans have little to no money saved for retirement. We have a massive underemployment rate, which is not unemployment, because unemployment is actually doing pretty well. And Trump does use that as his argument. Oh yeah, we have so many jobs. Like nobody's unemployed. Everybody's employed in their jobs. But it doesn't just matter what the employment rate is. It matters if you are able to keep your house. It matters what the job is, how much you're getting paid for it. You can't just go like, oh yeah, people have jobs, they're okay. No. They could barely pay for their rent. They might even go homeless, who knows? So, of course, places like Fox News or Republicans or even centrist Democrats call this crazy. When it isn't. Billionaires are not victims. The people are already victims. Now, where are these taxes going to go towards? Well, it's connected to Medicare for All. Because people are also wondering, how is Medicare for All going to be funded? How is free college going to be funded? How is the Green New Deal going to be funded? Through the taxes that are made through the 70% wealth tax. You see, it's a string of ideas that are all connected. You can't just have Medicare for All by itself, or the 70% wealth tax by itself, or free college by itself, because they're all connected. And this money is going to a place that's for a good cause. This money is going to a good cause. It's not just wasting away. We're not saying, oh yeah, you know what, this billionaire money is going nowhere. It is going to free healthcare and free college education and free university education. So this actually is like the heart of all the plans, because without the 70% wealth tax, we wouldn't have no way to even fund Medicare for All or free college or the Green New Deal. So we have to implement this plan first. And it's worth it because, again, the classes are way too divided. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I do believe that you will be able to comment down in the comment section below this time. Thank you for watching this video, guys, and bye.